Namaste to you all. And today we have a very wonderful live talk, and we have some amazing masters out here, spiritual scientists, all of them. We have Dr. Amit Goswami and Sri D.R. Karthikeyan. Sri Amit Goswami is a retired professor of theoretical physics at the University of Oregon. He is a pioneer of the new paradigm of science.
Lot of echo.
Okay. He is a pioneer of the new paradigm of science called Science Within Consciousness. In his seminal book, The Self-Aware Universe, he solved the quantum measurement problem, elucidating the famous observer effect. Yes, while paving the path to a new paradigm of science based on the primacy of consciousness. He is the author of 9 books, including the textbook Quantum Mechanics, Physics of the Soul, Quantum Doctor, God is Not Dead, and How Quantum Activism Can Save Civilization. He appeared in the films What the Bleep Do We Know, The Dalai Lama Renaissance, and the award-winning The Quantum Activist Author Residence, Eugene, and he lives in Eugene, Oregon. And friends, so that is Dr. Amit Goswami for you. And we also have with us Sri D.R. Karthikeyan. He is from the Tamil Nadu cadre and a former director of the Central Bureau of Investigation, an IPS officer of the 1964 batch from the Karnataka cadre, and he was the former Director General of the National Human Rights Commission. But above all, he's an amazing spiritual scientist with an amazing understanding of spirituality, and he blends spirituality into his regular life. And of course, we have our own Dr. Newton, founder and chairman of Quantum Life University, a medical doctor by profession, MD, but went on to become a soul doctor, and the rest, as they say, is history. So over to Dr. Newton, Dr. Amit Goswami and Sri D.R. Karthikeyan to take you through this amazing quantum physics and spiritual science lecture. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I should speak for half an hour or so, and then listen, and then talk about the talk. Okay?
And Dr. Amit, it's wonderful to have you with us today. And I met you a few years back. I still remember it's very fresh when you came down to Hyderabad, when you stepped into the campus. And it was such a great meeting with you. The word quantum you introduced to us. And from that time, we called the institute Quantum Life University, proposed Quantum Life University. And the thanks, always we remember you. And today with us, Sri D.R. Karthikeyan ji. He is our well-wisher, and he is a great supporter of all the spiritual organizations within India and around the globe. He connects with all the spiritual movements. He supports very actively, and he is a spiritual scientist. It's really wonderful to have this beautiful discussion, conversation about quantum science of the reincarnation. Dr. Amit ji, today we selected this topic because we want to know from you about the quantum view, quantum physics, the viewpoint of quantum physics about reincarnation. Because when we are hearing about reincarnation memories, we always speak about linear model, but quantum physics says something different. And today this discussion with you will be very, very useful for everyone. We know that, we know that we entered into a different paradigm, a kind of a beautiful quantum paradigm. The whole globe really moving in that direction. There's a scientific perspective which is joining to the spiritual science, spirituality. the spirituality is also very radically, it is expanding because of the support that's coming from the quantum physics. Welcome you once again, and please throw some light, Dr. Amit ji, about the reincarnation and quantum physics.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So, quantum physics is the physics of possibilities. Possibilities for consciousness to choose from. When we realize this, immediately some very wonderful questions come up. If it is consciousness that chooses among quantum possibilities, of course, then the fundamental question of what is reality is already answered. It is consciousness. This is, of course, the basis of all spiritual traditions. So in this way, quantum physics integrates science and spirituality. That is obviously the point that Newton already made. The question of reincarnation is slightly more complicated. And for that, you have to understand what it means to say, or how do we establish the idea that consciousness is the ground of being. What we really found is that yes, quantum objects are possibilities, and because they are possibilities, they're not actual events in space and time, actual objects in space and time, nor human beings or observers in space and time. So where do possibilities lie? Where do they exist? And when we ask this question, if we postulate that, okay, they must exist somewhere outside of space and time, question comes, how do we know? How do we know that they really are outside of space and time? And that question was first answered by Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosen in a paper written in 1935, where they really objected to quantum physics. Their objective was to find some dismay. They showed that if two quantum objects of possibility interact locally by coming together, close together, then they become correlated. They acquire a condition which is most peculiar. Nobody ever thought of this kind of situation between two objects, two interacting objects. Because in Newtonian physics, objects always interact through interaction of energy, through some signals, going through space, taking a little time. And what Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosen found is that quantum objects, when they're correlated, they interact without exchanging any signal. Without exchanging any signal. They communicate at once, instant communication. Instant communication cannot occur in space and time. Relativity forbids that. There is a speed limit in space and time called the speed of light. So in this way, immediate conclusion was that this domain of potentiality must be outside of space and time, where things can communicate instantly without signal. Space-time, every communication is with signal. So communication with signal we call locality. Communication without signal we say non-locality. So remember this term, non-locality, crucially important. So I come to the cut to the chase right away and tell you what quantum physics can prove. And then I'll talk a little bit about the proof. But basically, it's very easy to understand. See, when we think that I die, you die, we are thinking our brain is dead, and with it all memory of the brain, of who I was.
Doctor, we had a little bit of interruption.
You're using a sound?
Yeah, we had some interruption. Technically, there was some loss of signal. So could you just repeat the last sentence? And for the interest of our viewers, I can just mention what I picked up, the last important point about what you call locality and non-locality. Things which interact through a signal, you say, is a local communication. And there is a non-local aspect which is introduced by quantum science. That's what I understand.
Good.
Thank you. And please go ahead, because there was a break in signal. So you could just repeat the last bit once.
Yes. So when people die, we just assume that people's identity, memory, all these things are locked up in the brain. So when the brain dies, it is very hard to imagine that we survive. Of course, when we realize that we are all consciousness, that oneness that prevails as the ground of being, consciousness is you can think of consciousness as the chairperson of the domain of non-locality, this domain of potentiality where possibility waves reside. Because any two objects in that domain can potentially be correlated or interact at once. Interacting at once can only be interpreted as a oneness. So the domain itself must be a domain of potential oneness. This is the idea. You can think of it as Brahman, only with the qualification is that science is making it clear that we cannot have manifest reality in both that domain and this domain. So in the manifest domain, we are local. Unmanifest domain, domain of consciousness, we are non-local, it's all one. And this is what Upanishads meant when they said Brahman, that non-local oneness. Okay.
Yes, Dr. Amit, it's so wonderful to hear about the consciousness, which is more fundamental, and it's like a chairperson. It's like a very foundation of everything. Like even non-locality is also included in non-locality in
Yes.
consciousness.
Yes,
Please.
when consciousness chooses, the non-local domain fits up into a subject and an object. This is the mystery of creation. So that non-locality, that oneness, that being, chairperson is a bit confusing. Don't think of consciousness as a human being, not localized. Remember, this is non-local, so it's all over. It's everything, one and only. So that consciousness becomes manifest as a subject, which we call I, and the objects that we experience. Now, having said that, the next question about reincarnation, of course, the puzzling question is that with the brain, I manifest myself, but with the help of the brain. And then I make memories also in the brain. So if the brain dies, do I still exist in some way that can manifest something of me? This is the question that we really have to answer. Because consciousness always survives. That's now taken for granted. And as Krishna explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, you remember the imperishable. Clothes you can exchange, then when they get old, we change clothes, just like that. The consciousness exchanges the physical body for another physical body. It's easy to say, but how and what is happening? When we say that it's actually a person, consciousness uses different bodies, that's easy to understand. Different human beings, okay. But how do we know that there is this chain of human beings who are all related to each other, and they are all this string of the same pearl that we call individual human being? The same human being is reincarnated all over this space and time. This is the hard one to understand, because it seems like since we manifest with the help of the brain and we make memories in the brain that defines our history and everything about us, with brain dead, we should be dead too. And here is the reason that I introduced the concept of non-locality. Quantum physics shows that no, some of our aspects of who we are, that is not local memory in the brain, that's non-local memory. Okay? But this is the whole point. In fact, it's amazing how the Upanishads, written some, not written, but discovered some 7,000 years ago, how could they possibly think of such a thing without quantum physics? This is the mystery that I sometimes wonder. Now that quantum physics makes it very clear that Upanishads are very correct in such assertion that yes, we can be reborn like that because part of our memory is non-local. Let's now think about which part, because Upanishads are very clear, but we have made it very unclear. Upanishads introduced the word karma. Later, Buddhists clarified this as samskara. That's a better word because it means certain patterns of habit. That is a good key. Karma was a fine word. Upanishads meant probably the same thing. That is my assumption. But in the meantime, many philosophers interpret karma in terms of Newton's cause and effect. And it's a long story. I won't go into it. It cannot be upheld by physics. Physics upholds the definition of samskara, habit patterns and character traits. So let me explain what happens to consciousness when it states and when it becomes a subject of consciousness. That's the instant subject. It still retains a lot of that non-locality. This is why when we get into that state, which the wish is indeed there, they call it samadhi, and then you can feel, you can experience this oneness of consciousness. So this quantum self is said to be cosmic spirit within us, or God within us, if you want to be popular about it. And then we have conditioning, memory making, because any experience will be memorized. That is what the brain does. And these memories will gradually contribute to how we process something that we have experienced before. Because as soon as the stimulus comes, immediately brain not only perceives the stimulus and responds to it, but it also excites the brain's memory of the stimulus from the previous experience. So there's no alternative. Brain just will do it automatically, because brain is a kind of a machine. It is built of matter after all. And in this, the memories are play of the mind. So consciousness with the help of the mind is making memories of how it interprets all the stimuli that is receiving. And this memory accumulates. So whatever we are responding, it will be in the memory and it will be played back. And we respond then not only to the original stimulus, but we also respond to the memories. Brain is built in such a way, researchers find, experimenters, that there's a half a second gap between the immediate experience, present-centered experience, and the experience that we have in our ordinary ego consciousness. And this is why the ego consciousness is so jaded. It does not have that sense of expansion, cosmic, all over. It's very local. It seems like it's in the brain because it's nothing but coming mostly with that memory of previously who I was, how I experienced things before. It has become a me because I have looked at this eye many times, and anytime I look at my eye, it becomes a me. It's an object for me to look at. So that's the first thing that happens to the ego. It is a I converted into me. Little bit of the I is still there, but you really have to be perceptive to see it. What is happening is this memory reflection in the mirror of memory that introduces a process that psychologists call conditioning. And this conditioning is the key thing. Conditioning produces patterns of habit, also something that we call character traits. There is a subtle difference between the two. I'll come to that later. Let's look at how the conditioning is taking place. In quantum physics, it's a reflection in the mirror of memory that is doing it. So it's a modification of the equations of movement that our various experiences, or cause of the experiences, the possibilities that give rise to experiences, they have. Little bit difficult there to understand because I passed on some mathematics, but I'm not going into the details of mathematics. You have to take my word for it that we took the equation, we put the feedback of the memories, and we were able to solve it. When we solved, This is the enormous, enormous, enormous result. The result was that yes, there is indeed conditioning. But notice how the conditioning took place. Conditioning means a habit. I learned a way of doing things. There is food, I know what paths to use to get it. That's what conditioning is about. Conditioning is forming a habit. How does this habit become character? If the habit becomes so entrenched in me that I automatically do it without thinking, without deliberation, then it's a character pattern. It's part of my character. Some people just are loving people. Some stimulus occurs, they will immediately have a very friendly response to it. Other people are not like that. Right? These are character patterns. Something is just a habit, but I can take it or leave it. That's the difference. Okay, but they're basically coming from the conditioning of the change in response given by the questions that govern the behavior of the mind, which is quantum. This is the key. And now,
Dr. Amit, we will have Dr. Newton. So you have explained, the science of reincarnation from the quantum physics perspective. So let's have Dr. Newton from his medical science background as well as his very deep spiritual background. So Dr. Newton, can you tell us about the quantum science of reincarnation from your medical and spiritual background?
And let me finish the argument, then
Sorry?
Newton can speak. Let me finish the argument that I was giving. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So
Please.
the argument goes like, okay, I almost finished it. The first argument is a modification of the equation of movement that is taking place. And the key thing is right here. Where are the equations of movement? Where are the equations of movement? Now you all know about gravity law. This is something very familiar to you, right? You know also about things and laws and hardware and software. So what is the difference between a simple glass of water versus the brain? For a glass of water, we immediately see that the water is governed by physical laws. And these laws are not written in the body of the glass. These laws are universal laws that come from the domain that we call supramental. The ancient in the Upanishad, it's called Vijnanamaya Kosha. That's where it comes from. The laws of physics. They are not in space and time, they are not in matter. This is the important thing. Similarly, the laws of quantum movement, those quantum equations that got modified because of the reflection of memory, they too are written in the Vijnanamaya Kosha, in the supramental domain. They are not laws written in the brain. They don't come just as the law of gravity is not in the apple, not in the moon. Similarly, the law of conditioning is not in the brain. This is the key. So where is it? It's outside of space and time, outside of matter. What does that mean? Remember that concept of non-locality? So this memory is non-local. This memory is non-local, and our ancestors were so smart, they even had a name for it. They already guessed it. They already intuited it. They called it Akashic memory. Memory written in Akasha. You probably think of Akasha as sky because this is the translation now, but you know what Akasha means? Akasha means space. Akasha is outside of space, not space. This is what the ancient people already intuited. This is what amazes me. How could they intuit the concept of Akasha? Just amazing. Anyway, this is what we have rediscovered in form of mathematics of quantum physics, and this is undefeatable because mathematical logic is the absolute most wonderful logic that human beings have discovered. You cannot question the logic. You can question the assumption behind the logic. But the assumption, as I said, is the same assumption that the Upanishadic people make. Consciousness is the ground of being. Only new assumption we have is that objects are possibilities of consciousness to choose from. But that's not an assumption. That's what quantum physics says, which has been verified by thousands and thousands of experiments, literally. So there is now a concrete science of non-locality of memory, non-locality of karma. So karma down is clearly has to be thought of as non-local memory. Or samskara is better word to remember because karma might still confuse you. But don't think of karma as cause effect. It's not a revenge. It's not like that. It's simply a pattern of habits and traits of character that you have made part of your ego, defining part of the ego. So the more authentic you make them, the more part of your character it becomes, and those are the desirable features that you have. Habit patterns, we have both negative and positive. So it's a negative karma and positive karma. So those things are important. The idea of the karma, this has been also very important. This has been verified by a neurophysiological experiment by a neurophysiologist named Carl Lashley in the 1950s. And nobody ever since, the people have tried and tried, but they cannot explain it. What Lashley found, he experimented with rats, and very cruel experiment, but those atrocities people did at the time. Don't blame Lashley, he was just following the procedures. Even even brain lobotomy was common in those days, you remember. So it is sort of lobotomy that he did on the rats. But before that, he taught the rats something to find its way to a Y maze. On one end of the Y, there is cheese, on the other end, there is electric shock. So that learns to avoid the electric shock and find the cheese. That's the learning. And then, amazingly, he decided to do lobotomy. So rats, various parts of the brain were taken off and see if the rat still remembers. Amazingly, Lashley took up 10%, 15%, 20%, even 50%. Even then, the rat is now blind, rat cannot walk, it crawls and melts it to the cheese. So Lashley concluded, unfortunately somewhat wrongly, that the memory must be everywhere in the brain. But of course, that does not really work out because people look, and now with neuroscientists making tremendous advances, we really can look and we don't find that. We find no memory is not everywhere. So the memory of learning, the only conclusion you have is memory of learning cannot be in the brain at all because Lashley's experience also fits with nowhere in the brain. That's the part that Lashley missed. It could be everywhere, then there is an answer because I have only chopped out a limited portion. But if it is nowhere, then also the experiment can explain. It's nowhere, also they never found it. It just continues on and on and on, even when the brain has completely died. And that's what reincarnation is about. Even when the brain dies, the memory of the habits, memory of the learning, memory of the qualities that you have acquired, what you can do, unity. That's the. So what's the lesson from all this? We should develop good character. We should develop good habits. So that's what we take with us. We don't take with us the parts which are history or stuff that we just a bunch of information that we collect. Those things we don't take with us. We take with us what we learn, the capacity we learn to accomplish. Yes. Okay. So this is the basic explanation. We can go from there. There are some other features minor for this discussion. Okay, we can now please.
That's wonderful, Dr. Amit, listening to you about the quantum perspective on reincarnation. And it almost validates what Upanishads and what ancient scriptures from Bharat are saying. It's like what you're saying about the consciousness, which is all encompassing, and how we get into conditioned states and conditionings, habits, and memories. And it's more localized memories, and where sometimes we get stuck with memories. Some memories are very hard. People, they really feel traumatized with certain memories. Whenever they remember, they feel a certain pain, a certain fear enters into them, because collectively we also carry memories of the wars that had taken place on the planet Earth. And many people still suffering from Second World War, where the post-traumatic stress disorder, still people are sleepless in Japan and certain places. And because these memories have an effect on us, because we are allowing them to affect us. And I must say, from the point of view of a past life explorer, I've been into this reincarnation research, and over more than 3 decades. And past 3 decades, my research, I could find that many people, they are not able to let go of these memories. It's not so easy for them. They need additional tools. Like one tool is consciousness itself. Like when they are offered the tools of consciousness, how they, if they understand through their own experience, they are not localized beings, they're not linear beings, they are able to actually go into those times, memories, and change their viewpoint. They change their viewpoint. They change how they look at those past memories. For example, I can say certain memories affecting the people from childhood, some conditioning that happened in the childhood, and people in a very deep altered state of consciousness, like a hypnotic regression, when they enter into a trance state, they suddenly expand their consciousness. They're not in the like a limited consciousness of the body and mind, but they're suddenly transcending certain limitations, and they're able to journey back into that past memory, past times, for example, the childhood, where they meet the younger version of themselves going through a tough period. For example, a child who was going through a kind of a difficult childhood memories, where people are disapproving the child or hurting the child and creating certain fear in the child. And now this grown-up adult is going back in time in the regression process, and they are looking at that child version, younger version of themselves. They're interacting. They're saying that I'm coming from the future time. I'm glad to find you today, and I understand what you went through in that particular memory. Let us look at this memory from a different viewpoint, and that kind of interaction with our past life selves is bringing something like a lot of healing, a lot of inner shift and transformation, and they're able to actually let go of certain emotions, certain habits, behaviors they are carrying. When you're talking about, Dr. Amit, about Vijnanamaya Kosha, it really brings so much understanding, because this Vijnanamaya Kosha, the causal body, resides in non-local space. It's beyond this three-dimensional reality, and that's why when we access those akashic memories, akashic records, we have an access to not only the memory but also we can modify them. That's what is the quantum physics. I understand from the point of view of quantum physics. It says that there are probabilities existing, all possibilities existing, even past can be altered. Dr. Amit, am I right in saying that? And can we change our past, our understanding towards the past?
Well, this is the bit. This requires a lot of qualifications. There are some things that indeed we can change, but it's really reconstruct rather than change. I can change the perspective of looking at it. Like, sort of you mentioned trauma. How do we heal trauma? We just change the perspective of looking at the incident. That's basically the healing means. Of course, we can get rid of some of the energies that are in the, but that's only can be done in this life. For past life regression, getting rid of trauma is just changing the perspective.
Changing the perspective. That's wonderful, wonderful. Because we can't change those memories as such. We can only change our perspective, viewpoint. And that's what the past life regression or age regression in a child, womb regression, or we say that LBL regression, life between life states regression. When we are accessing those memories, we are also from that non-local, non-linear perspective, we are able to look at it from a different viewpoint. We are changing our perceptions, and definitely changing our perceptions is altering also our reality here, because perceptions create reality. You mentioned clearly about that, how our perceptions shape our current reality here. So that's really wonderful. I also request Karthikeyan ji to throw some light. He is such a inspiration in India for all of us. Many of the spiritual organizations. He is a great karma yogi and also great master of his own, a spiritual scientist. Sir, can you please share about your views about spiritual science, reincarnation?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Sir, we can hear you.
Because there is a lot of echo.
Yes.
You can hear me?
I can hear you, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. So far I had a lot of echo coming out. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, I can. Wonderful. No, you see, it's coming again. All right. Okay. See, I came here, Dr. Newton and the Professor. I came here, I joined you as a seeker to learn from experts. Okay. Suddenly I find I've been shown also okay, then I allow some gap so that the echo is over. Pardon me, I give you some gap because my voice is being echoed again. So I'll talk slowly. Okay. Okay. Right. Right. Now I only want to make some statements and ask for clarification, advice from both these great masters. Okay. Yeah, I think it has stopped now. See, there is an ancient saying, there's an ancient saying that when we go to bed to sleep, when we go to when we go to sleep, it is like death. It is like death. And when we wake up in the morning, it's like a rebirth. And when we wake up, it is like a rebirth, newborn. Okay, I just want to know what is the difference, if there is a difference between, like, what is the difference between afterlife, rebirth, reincarnation?
Okay, Karthikeyanji, it's wonderful about these two things that you have mentioned about the sleep and getting up in the morning fresh, and it's like a rebirth. Sleep is like death, and waking up from our sleep is like a new birth. And yes, in India we speak a lot about this.
It is an ancient.
Yes.
It is an ancient saying, about 5,000 years old.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
So is there ancient saying 5,000 years old? It can't be the same, but what can be the difference between?
Yes, sir. I can share about this, sir.
Another thing I want to make. See, we believe in. Okay. See, Dasavataram. Okay, Dasavataram and child prodigies are proof of reincarnation. And child prodigies.
Yes, sir. I will share about these two things.
And child prodigies are proof of reincarnation. I am giving this gap because my words are being repeated here. Let go.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I want to know if all the religions, traditions, I want to know if all the traditions, religions believe in some sections at least in reincarnation.
Okay, can I interject and make some
That's
points
all.
on quantum science?
Sure,
Because
sure,
Quantum science is the answer for all of this, what you're asking.
sure.
First of all, there is a difference between sleep, deep sleep, and death. Big difference, which is the deep sleep, brain is still alive. Brain waves do not go to naught. Whereas in death, that's what happens. There's no brain waves period. This is a very important difference because unless the brain is there, we cannot memorize, we cannot make manifestation. So brain or some physical hardware is essential for manifesting reality. Okay. So what happens between the death and after death? The existences are very different. This is a misconception that many people have. I don't think Punisher has this misconception, but many people have. In non-locality, there is no experience. Experiences can happen only in the material reality. Physical body is needed. This is why in all spiritual traditions, they always say physical body is very precious, don't waste it, because this is where karma is done. No other place karma can happen. And by karma, they mean not work. Karma, they mean acquiring these habit patterns and character. That is me, which has to progress. through these various incarnations. So these questions are very much answerable today in contact science. And the misconceptions that still exist is, one by one we can look at it, and every misconception or every question that you can ask can be answered. The key thing to remember is that the incarnation, you mentioned also prodigies, these are not problems for the quantum, nor is it problem for the kinesthetic model, because there is concept of formal powers there. Why certain people are prodigies? Because they bring very special propensities, very special formal with them. Their character traits are wonderful. Like Ramanujan got his character trait of mathematics with him. So he had tremendous ability of mathematical kind, even at the age of 7. So these things can be understood. Similarly, Newton finds a lot of case of mental phobia. That is again a character pattern. If you have a trauma, how that becomes part of the character, because it is actually. It's a character of responding with trauma. So that response part is the character. And then why do you remember the trauma? Because the trauma was crucial in forming that character. So that part of that non-local memory, and that also comes about as soon as that part of your character is remembered. So in this way, quantum science is giving answers to all those questions that the regression therapy raises, that you raised, practically. So we are in a good shape, science-wise.
Thanks, Dr. Amit. And Karthikeyanji, I would like to add one more point about this. So we are entering into different levels of consciousness when we are slipping into sleep. So in the ancient, one of the Upanishads, it mentioned, Taittiriya Upanishad, and I think even the Mandukya Upanishad, which mentioned about these different states of consciousness. Generally, we are in the Jagruta Avastha, the waking state, where these physical operators like a brain and also a physical body or cells in the body, they operate with all the 5 senses, will be so focused in this physical dimension. But when we are slipping into sleep, it's a kind of altered state of consciousness which is occurring. Scientists have measured these altered states through brain waves and through taking even the different parameters, physiological parameters which are altered. So we are entering into a swapna avastha, means a dreamy state. It's a different state of consciousness. And then at one stage of our sleep, we are into deep sushupta avastha. The third state it's mentioned in Mandukya Upanishad. It's called sushupti avastha, means deep unconscious state. We are not aware of that we are asleep. We are not aware of anything. And then sometimes people have a different experience of turiya avastha. A turiya state is also mentioned in Mandukya Upanishad. Those who are spiritual sadhaks, practitioners of meditation, and they are able to, the consciousness is all the time measuring and watching, witnessing, and at the same time participating and experiencing. So the turiya state, a transcendental state of awareness. And again, we wake up in the morning at Jagruta Avastha, waking state. And it's like a metaphor they were speaking. It's like I understand it as a metaphor. Our ancients were saying it's like a metaphor. When you are going to sleep, you are you are like dying to the entire past. And when you wake up in the morning, begin as a fresh new being, fresh new self. It's so that we don't carry the baggage or whatever those habits or patterns that we formed. That's what I understood Karthikeyanji is as a metaphor and different states of consciousness. And whenever we are changing our state of consciousness, it's like that altered state, it feels that we are dead to the earlier state. Dead means it's like it's a limited state of consciousness. Jagrata Avastha is very limited compared to Swapna Avastha. Swapna Avastha is very limited compared to Sushupta Avastha. Turiya Avastha is we say is the transcendental ultimate level of consciousness one can achieve through their own sadhana and practice. And when you asked about the reincarnation, why certain traditions they talked about reincarnation, why certain traditions did not speak about it. I think it's certain cultures, certain religions could present about law of karma and reincarnation, but it's not a linear model at all. When the ancient scriptures, Upanishads, they are speaking, Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna was speaking. He is not speaking in a very linear, local way, but it's a non-local, non-linear knowledge he was presenting. Even law of karma is, when we think it in terms of linearity, we really make no sense about it. Dr. Amit was saying about that. Karma in the smaller, limited perspective, we can, it's a very distorted version. But Bharat Desh has presented these two wonderful sciences to the world about reincarnation, that how we are time travelers. We journey across time. We were in different forms, and our forms we're coming back again and again. It's continuum. It's not like a full stop anywhere. And those certain cultures did not speak about it does not mean that it was not existing. For example, when we're talking about Sufism, sir, Sufism, they talk about reincarnation memories. Jalaluddin Rumi mentioned about it when he was producing this mystical poetry, because he had mystical experiences. He was speaking about reincarnation, like I died once as a mineral and I became a plant. I became a plant and died as a plant, and I rose as an animal. I died as an animal. I became a human. When should I fear? Why should I fear? When should I less by dying? And he was speaking about the deathless state of being. I believe that the Vedas, Upanishads, ancient scriptures from India, is called as highest pramana, highest what is called as evidence that they can give to us. The finest spirituality was presented by the ancient rishis, yogis from India. That's what I believe, sir. But this science, spirituality was there universal. It is universal, but very much like a very, very clear knowledge was presented by the ancient rishis, sir. Yes, go ahead, Karthikeyanji. You want to say something?
Can I?
Yes, sir.
Can I?
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Now only now only after your last sentence was repeated now, so now only line is clear now for me. Okay, I will talk slowly. I think it was the great poet, Rumi, who said that, why fear death? Every time I am dead, reborn for a higher revolution. So, Rumi, maybe attributed to Vedas also. Every time I am dead, I am born as a better person in evolution. So why fear death? Maybe something more better is awaiting me after my death. Okay, now let's only one. Better evolution level, the ladder. You say welcome death, He is the person who welcomed death. In fact, that's why the day he died is celebrated even now in Konya as the celebration of his wedding day. Celebrated even today. I've been there. You know, yes, yeah. It is near Istanbul. Istanbul, I have been there on that day. People used to come, of course, cry and all that. Now, only one more question. I will not take your time. Okay, whether it is a punarjanmam or rebirth. Okay. I'm going to talk slowly because my voice coming echo to me. Rebirth or transmigration, belief varies in different cultures. Envisioned to be sometimes they say you become only a human being, or in other forms they say it can be an animal or a plant or a spirit or a stone. In fact, there is some cultures again quoting a very ancient scripture. It says the evolution. It is written again 30,000 years back, a poem. It says, from where to where I have come today. So I am tired of all this now. I want to go to a higher reach. Take me away. Hello, please take me away. Your comment.
Yes, I would like to comment on it. No, the human being cannot be born in a lower form simply because the way that it works, how quantum science works, is that the memory that we get is a memory that only can correlate between my own human life with using the human brain, using the hardware that human species has, and other hardware just will not do. To recognize movement. Could you hear me with all that noise? You know what I'm getting at? So it is my non-local memory, human non-local memory. So I can have a reincarnation back when, thousands of years ago, that's fine. I can have a reincarnation in another planet, that is also fine. But it is not fine that I can reincarnate in a cat's body in a future. That is not fine because I cannot be correlated with a cat that way. Okay? The correlation exists only between specific patterns of memory. And those specific patterns of memory are connected. That's the only way we can understand the transmigration from one body to another. Also, a very easy way to think also is that animals do not have even thinking capacity. Much of our reincarnation memory, Newton knows very well because he regresses people regularly. We never find any character element that is outside of thinking, because human beings are basically thinking beings. Even feelings, pure feelings, we don't really experience very much, and we are not very aware of it anyway. So it becomes emotion, thinking, pure thinking, or intuition thinking. Three kinds of thinking. Basically, that's what we are. Sometimes we do experience feeling. Animals, only higher animals, mammals can experience feeling. But the lower animals cannot even experience really feeling in the macroscopic sense. They have only very basic cognitive capacity. So when we understand all these scientific aspects of how evolution took place, then some of the folklore about reincarnation can easily be dispensed with. This is just a carry tactics, like Christians created the concept of hell, scare tactics, keep people in line. So here Hindus did the same thing with scare tactics. If you don't follow ethical laws, you will be born as a rat. Because you are a rat now, that's a metaphor, you will be born as a pure rat. That was a punishment sort of thing. But science has no room for that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, Dr. Amit, and thanks for presenting about your views about the question that asked by Sri Karthikeyanji. And reincarnation memories, though there are different beliefs and in different parts of the globe, and particularly India, we believe that we have been in other forms before we incarnate into the human kingdom. We have been into the animal, plant, mineral kingdom. The ancient rishis talked about it. Particularly one reference that was there in, I think, Ramayana times, Jadabharata. Jadabharata, who was a rishi himself, he was a yogi who was in an ashram meditating, and he fell in love with a deer which has come into the ashram. So when the deer went away, and this is a metaphorical story maybe, when this deer went away from the ashram, he was in search, and finally he died. The last moments were he was grieving for the that he could not find the deer. When the next incarnation cycle, he reborn as this deer in the lower form, but this deer was carrying the memory. That's interesting. That's what is told in this story, the ancient story, where this deer used to sit near the rishis, listening to the discourses, never used to leave the ashram, and the last thoughts determine the next life. That's what the story of Jadabharata was revealing. But the scientific perspective is more required. From the past life regression perspective, we have found certain people narrating about reincarnation memories from the earlier kingdoms, like the dolphins and certain animals. And after that, their viewpoint is changed. And the only thing is, I never found a case study where people were mentioning that after they're incarnated as a human, they are going back to the earlier kingdoms. There's no retrogression. Like it's like already a 10th class student who passed the 10th class will not go to the 7th class, will not go to the earlier classes. So that's what the ancient scriptures from India were talking about, the very linear model of evolution. But the quantum science has a different viewpoint, so that I understand that it's non-linear. There could be quantum jumps, the quantum leaps that can happen, because a Ratnakara could become a Valmiki Maharshi, and a dacoit like Angulimala, he became like a bodhisattva in that same lifetime. He could become really a great master himself. That means there are quantum jumps. It's not that what we believe about reincarnation is a linear model, it's not occurring, but even in non-linear fashion, it's like a quantum jumps. And request Dr. Amit about these kinds of quantum leaps, quantum possibilities, and how people also tap into these possibilities. Can you throw some light on it?
Well, as I said, the incarnation is a transmigration of non-local memory. There really isn't any scope of discontinuous quantum leap in addition. But you are very right. Quantum leaps occur in this lifetime. So if we make quantum leaps, and that's what gives us character traits, then we'll take that to the next lifetime. So certainly quantum leaps are very welcome part of our um, existence and our reincarnation. One thing very important though, which you did cover, which is that the change from one kingdom to another, those are huge quantum leaps of evolution. I don't particularly like using the word reincarnation for it because there's a fundamental change from when animal species went into human species, especially modern human species, and this change is extremely important to notice. The animals were non-locally connected through feeling. It is called species consciousness. Human beings did have species consciousness in earlier era when we were very much emotional, very connected. But in the mental era, where we have become progressively more individual because we are into more into this mental ego, neocortex processes the mind. As I said, most of our experiences are in one form or another thought, emotional thought, rational thought, or intuitive thought, but it's more or less tends to be thought. We have very little experience with pure feeling. Women folks do a little more than men folk, but still it's very much thought. That's our lot. And because of that, we have lost connection with each other. We are very independent, separate being, and this is why we have reincarnation. Reincarnation for animals can be theorized, but it's a reincarnation of group soul, the species consciousness. Whereas for humans, it is rational human, it is really individual consciousness, that individual non-local memory that travels from one life to another. So if we think this way, it becomes very clear that we cannot regress. We cannot regress to earlier forms of life. Okay? With all due respect, Dr. Kanji, you have to accept that.
Yes, Dr. Amit, thank you. That's a really great clarity. The group consciousness that exists in animals, how they also reincarnate in the same group consciousness. Thank you for that. And Dr. Karthikeyanji, Sri Karthikeyanji has something to add. And sir, please go ahead. Karthikeyanji.
Yes, yes. Oh, yes. Is there is there any non-human is there any non-human realm of existence? Non-human realm of existence, not animals, birds. It's called some spiritual level. Non realm of realm of existence. One. Number two. Number two. Non-human realm of existence. Okay. Number two. Number two. When we say liberation, is moksha, nirvana, moksha, nirvana, mukti, and kaivalya, kaivalya, mukti, kaivalya, are all the same. Are the same. Okay. Number three, I want to share something, communicating with the lives we have left. My experience. Three. That was about 20 years back when I met about 20 years back when I met Reverend Alex Orbito. Reverend Alex Arbito, the famous psychic surgeon. The psychic surgeon, it was in Grosseto in Italy. Okay, there, I think there is something in the. There was a gentleman called Mario, an old man, in his huge radio, old type of radio. People used to feel that they can come and speak to the people who have left the body. Or he gets a call. So along with Alex Arbito, I was also there when mothers who have lost their children came, particular day, nights. And he will get a signal and they get voice from the children who have died in accidents earlier. And the mothers are able to identify and communicate and cry and all that I have seen. From the other world. They were authentic because they could tell what happened to them, where they have kept things and all that. World beyond. So what do you say?
And I think Amit ji, now you can share, Amit ji. Yeah.
You want to speak, no, Newton? That's fine. Okay, so the first question.
The first one. First, let me just repeat what he has asked. Are there any non-human existence?
Yes, I remember that. Are there other realms of non-human existence? So yeah, this can be true, but evidence is very difficult. But we can make theory. Such Aurobindo talked about such a theory. I also have occasionally speculated, but I wouldn't speculate about this very loudly because it's very, very hard to verify. So they really are not scientific. Because science needs verification, verifiable idea, and this is not a verifiable idea. So I would not be speaking about it very much, but we certainly can speculate and we certainly can entertain new data as it's coming up. Some people claim there is data. I haven't seen any myself, any real data. I have read anecdotes about it, but that is not permissible data. Second question, very good question. Moksha, nirvana, mukti, are they the same kind of thing? Well, yes, I would guess so. Again, the question depends on how do you interpret life's journey. If life's journey indeed is knowing the self, finally, eventually, obviously, we are not ready for that. We go through many incarnations before being ready for it. When we are ready for it, when we realize life in any form is suffering, then we go for it as the Buddha discovered. And Nirvana is a good description of it. The desire to live is gone, desire to manifest is gone, so why should I manifest again? That's a good idea. Hindus basically have the same idea, Indian scriptures and Vedanta. And again, it makes sense that if we get to that stage where even the need for the qualified Brahman is finished, then there is no need to reincarnate anymore. And that stage is even recognized in Christianity, God realization, they call it. We call it Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But the highest Nirvikalpa Samadhi is something that people cannot talk about, and that's the Nirvana state. You cannot just, you can only say Nirvana, you can only say moksha, you cannot really say anything much, because there is no qualification to describe. And that after that, that does not make any sense to be reborn, because you have reached that without qualification, that state of nothingness. I mean, Nirvana is a very good name for it. Emptiness, nothingness. After that, there cannot be anything, period. Okay, now, Radha Secretary, please remind me, what was the next question?
The next was just a sharing of his experience when he met Reverend Alex Orbito, where one of the persons had this ability to tune in to people who had passed over, who had died, especially children who died in accidents, and they were speaking through a radio set. And in fact, they were giving certain facts and information about their lives, which there was no way that others, the audience, could have known in any way, or that information could have been manipulated and made to come through the radio in any way. So in a way, it was absolutely maybe a scientific proof that, you know, there is something, that they are still having some kind of existence, and they're still able to communicate with us even though they have died. That's one thing. And my personal thing on this was, he was saying his first question, I think in this, the answer to his first question lies, because if there is some realm beyond the realm where there is existence, now these people have died, but then still they are communicating after they have died here. So apparently there must be some realm of existence in which they are sort of alive, in quotes, and they are still able to communicate with us.
Well, you know, I sat on one of these machines because the idea, radio sets, or this machine that I sat on, they're called electronic voice communication machines. That was the technical name I was given. It was a fad for quite a while, for about 10 years, I think, in the 1990s. But then it sort of faded off for the very simple reason that it does not make any scientific sense, because it's local communication. It's not non-local. Non-locality is a basic quantum doctrine, experimentally verified, and we got to accept that. Without accepting that, there is no explanation of our Shastras. There is no explanation of consciousness as the ground of being, Brahman. All of that requires the concept of non-locality. And once you have that concept, and once it has been measured, which it has, you cannot go back and make claims like, I have heard that domain with radio sets. That doesn't make any sense. But again, my experience was that it was an interpretation. What I was hearing, indeed, I can put some meaning to it. But you know, you have all seen Rorschach. I too have seen Rorschach. And you can make images out of ink blot, bunch of ink blot. You can. Indeed, abstract artists do that all the time, all over board painting. They make a lot of money doing it, because our eyes can construct meaning out of those old paintings. So it should not be too surprising that if we hear noise, we can make some sense of it occasionally. And if we try to interpret that as electronic voice communication from another domain, we get in trouble. What is communicating with what? And unless there is non-locality, we cannot have these domains of afterlife. It's just impossible to give any scientific explanation of it. Now, of course, you can always philosophize, and that is fine. But I think it's better to make scientific sense, because we make so much sense of everything that the Upanishad said, and Upanishad never talk about electronic voice communication, thank God. The Upanishads are one of the most pure knowledge system that I have seen. You know, every other scriptures have some nonsense here or there. But not the Upanishad, not the Indian Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Patanjali. These are just so perfect. Yeah, you also mentioned Kondaveti. Kondaveti is also very much a state like Nirvana or Moksha. No question. So anyway, this is my opinion that we really cannot have such things. Newton, you have anything on it which is different?
Dr. Amit, it's wonderful to know that the scientific perspective is very much required, the investigating into such phenomena. And I know Sri Karthikeyanji is such an investigator into not only the crime cases, he is a police great renowned, world-renowned officer, but also the researcher into spirituality, because I came to know about Sri Karthikeyanji through Reverend Alex Arbitoji. When we that's how I met Karthikeyanji, and I think this electronic voice phenomena is there are certain cases where the very clear messages were recorded. Even I have met one lady in Hyderabad who lost her son, and after a few days later, there's a telephone call, and the moment she lifts the call, there's a voice of the child who was speaking to her through the telephone, normal telephone, and it used to be blank, and she used to keep the phone back. And after some time, again used to ring. After some time later, third time, she started conversing. She said, "Beta, you know, the son, and where are you? I know, I recognize your voice." And he started speaking. He died out of an infection in a hospital, and he could not properly say goodbye to the mother. And there was some life after death communication through electronic thing that happened. And he started sharing about the life after death. He narrated about to the mother how safe he is on the other side, and how he was taken care there of everything there. And it's so wonderful. And when I heard about this, I could not believe, because there's no evidence. We can't really prove that it is like a mother, whether she's out of her depression, she is hallucinating, but I trusted her feelings. She was touched by that experience. Though it is a subjective experience, but it is very valuable. And second thing I found is when I was in Coimbatore, I had a workshop in Coimbatore. That time, one doctor who organized a workshop, she took us to a mystic. He used to live in a hut. And the moment we entered there, he's a very simple master, like just ordinary simple master. And his practice is like a bowl of water. He asks people to dip a white page into that water. And all of us were 5 people, and everyone we dipped in that water. And the beautiful Tamil language, certain things appeared. Later, my friend decoded what is written in that. It's amazing. I was meeting him for the first time, but my name was there. And also about this happened almost 15 years back. At that time, no university and no idea about even starting the university, but all that messages were there. And one of the ladies who was from Dutch, friends, she had a picture of a snake and a knee joint, her leg, the picture of the leg, and a snake in the going upward direction. So she had a difficulty, rheumatoid arthritis of her leg. And when we were meditating, this was the vision that we all combinedly shared with her. We all have received the similar kind of image and vision. And just before coming there, we shared to her about this vision of the snake in her leg. It's showing that there is some kind of problem in her leg. And this blank paper, this picture image appeared. And I was really stunned to see that. And later, the lady who took us there to that place, she narrated about this mystic master who communicates with Lord Murugan, Subramanyeshwara Swami. He was one of the divine forces, divine entities who communicates, it seems, in this way. So I had few other people I met who had this amazing experience where there is some kinds of spiritual breakthroughs. So science may not quantify and measure these things, but truly they're all extraordinary. And this is my view. And about Kaivalya, Mukti, Moksha, and in India we talk a lot about it. And it means the same. It's not different at all. It means ultimate freedom. Ultimate freedom is moksha, liberation, liberation from bondage, liberation from ignorance, liberation from all that's repetitive habitual cycles of birth and death. And whatever Christ spoken about, the kingdom of God, it also means the same. I don't find any difference between any religion because they're speaking in different languages, but they're conveying in they're pointing the fingers to the same thing, the same place that we all are aiming at to reaching. And thank you.
Karthikeyan is wanting to ask something.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Karthikeyan ji.
Okay, just 3 sentences. Okay. 1. People always said man can never fly. Today we are flying all over the world. We are only flying. Number 2. Number 2, they said past life regression is impossible. You have made it possible. Can you hear me? Okay. Wait.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Number 3, the last one, nothing is impossible. You can only say, with the knowledge available now, it looks very impractical. Okay. So there is a possibility always. Wonderful discussion. Thanks a lot of learning.
Thank you, Karthikeyan ji. And India is the land of such mystic masters, the land of wisdom, and all the Upanishadic wisdom is there in India. Sometimes when people do sadhana, it becomes active, it comes up, and it is awakened, that wisdom within. And then now the quantum physics is bringing evidence-based spirituality, because evidence is very much required. Without that, we'll be going nowhere. We may land up in superstitions, a lot of superstitions. That's where Dr. Amit ji's contribution, the quantum physics contribution, will be enormous. I heard from Albert Einstein and also P.D. Ouspensky. He spoke about this. Religion without science is incomplete, and science without religion also is incomplete. Both complement, they go hand in hand together. It's so essential. Now, particularly at this point of time, the quantum physics, tremendous role. It's changing the perspective of the whole globe. And it's uniting all the religions also in a way, because all religions have some beautiful truths expressed in those religions, but scientific perspective is brought from quantum physics. And Dr. Amit, please share something about quantum physics. Many of the viewers are also asking about quantum activism and about the quantum physics. How the quantum physics is now is going to help the humanity, how it can help.
Actually, the best thing, thank you, Dr. Newton, to give me this opportunity. I will say it because we now have a university that teaches quantum science and transformation according to it, and we give masters and PhD. You can look up my website, anyone, any listener, any viewer. It's amitgoswami.org, amitgoswami.org. Okay, you can get all the information there, but really, it is very important to. This is why, although Kartikanji's question is very relevant, and people should never close their mind to the idea of new possibilities coming about, but we have to take for the manifest universe that we know of, the idea of scientific laws seriously. Because if we don't, we get Donald Trump, we get Fox News in America. It's ruining American civilization. It ruined Indian civilization for quite a while. We all know that. And mainly it is because this not being able to distinguish what is useful and what is not useful. It is not useful to think of unicorns and, British literally warns again and again. Don't think of 1 year hairs. Don't think of, because it's not useful. Of course, in some ways, we must at the same time be open to new ways of looking at it, changing perspective, like quantum physics makes so many impossible things possible. So Kartikanji is making a major point that you should never give up on thinking of new possibilities, but always within the existing possibilities. The existing possibilities, once a law is established by experimental data, is really virtually impossible to refute that completely. You can find a new perspective to look at it, but that's about it. So that gives us a certain leverage, but not really in violation of the old laws. We have certain laws of material science, which says that what we know about human birth, for that, those laws are sacrosanct, like conservation of energy, like conservation of a number of baryons in the universe. So within those laws, we have to operate. Those are laws of hardware. On the other hand, laws of software, which is quantum science is about, completely much flexibility there. So there is a lot of possibilities. So if you said everything is possible in thinking, everything is possible in feeling, that's a much more useful statement than saying in the material domain, because material laws are much more fixed laws. So with those distinctions, I think it's helpful, because otherwise we really get into sometimes demise of civilization. Truth is a very important thing. We should never forget what we have established as truth. Once we have it, is precious. Nobody should violate it. And when people do, as I said, you get the likes of Donald Trump and Fox News. It's not a good thing for any society. I'm very happy that India does not have them so much. And with internet, we get a little bit of it, misinformation, but too much of it ruins a society. It's very destructive. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amit. And here with us, Bala Subramanyam ji, I want to bring onto the board, and for his Ratsikar, I'll put you down for a moment in the backstage. Okay. Yeah. Bala Subramanyam ji from Coimbatore, and can you share, please, your views today that we
Good evening.
about the quantum physics and the reincarnation.
Good evening,
Good evening, sir.
Dr. Newton, Dr. D.R.K. Karthikeyanji. I just came in only just 10 minutes back only. I didn't go through the conversation that took place. Therefore, I am not able to offer any remarks on what you have discussed because I didn't follow it. Because I just came in just 10 minutes back only. I had some board meeting.
I think there is some kind of network problem.
In my office. And
I think there is a network problem with Balasubramanian ji. Yeah, I think it's clear, sir, now. Yeah, we lost you. The signals were lost.
Now it's clear.
Now it's clear. It's clear. Yeah.
We can see him. We can see him, but we can't hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think signals are little weak, and so it's wonderful, Amit ji and Karthikeyan ji, for joining us today. It's so good. It's very fruitful for everyone. Ratsekar, your words you can share about what you feel like. Unmute yourself, Ratsekar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there is no queue. I don't know what happened.
And thank you, Sri Karthikeyan, for having taken your time and joined this wonderful interaction. And this kind of sharing, it really builds the scientific temper, because there are a lot of people who don't want to take things just at face value, even if it is spirituality, and even if it has been written in the scriptures and it's been around for thousands of years. And I'm also one of them with my own engineering background. So I really believe that without hard scientific evidence, you really can't take things. You can't just accept things. And now quantum science is really brought in, as Dr. Newton mentioned, this evidence-based understanding in the spiritual field also. And I really appreciate that. And I think it will help the entire spiritual science movement, because more and more people will be able to accept it, not just as a myth or a superstition or just kind of a blind belief, but something that is based on scientific evidence. And that's really refreshing for the whole world. And I think this lecture went a long way in bringing that understanding to people who are interested in this. Thank you again, Dr. Amit, Sri Karthikeyan, and Dr. Newton, of course, for always being that amazing guidance for all of us, and with your deep understanding of all aspects, the scientific as well as the spiritual.
Thank you, Ratsekar. And Dr. Amit ji, we invite you to Hyderabad whenever you are coming to India. Please, most welcome.
Thank you for the
We're
invitation.
very happy to host you.
Thank you so much, and I will take up the opportunity as soon as all this traveling becomes easier with us.
And Karthikeyan ji, you too, whenever you make it to Hyderabad, please do visit the university or campus. Every time you come, you will find something new, lots of new developments.
I know, I love it.
Yes.
I know a lot is lot. I know lots of things are happening.
Great, sir. Thank you. Thank you all.
You have
Very much.
made it a green oasis there.
Yes, sir.
Where is Professor Goswami speaking from?
Oh, right now in Kolkata.
Kolkata. Oh.
Yes, I am still in India because I came in December, last December, and
Oh,
I got stuck here because the traveling is so unsafe right now.
Mr. Rajshekhar, you must find out why this echo. Why this echo? See,
Yes, sir. I will do that because
the first time I have not faced it all these days. First time
happened in the earlier meeting.
I couldn't follow all the conversation.
Yeah, I think this time there's some the internet is having some major problem. Something must be, yeah.
So
We'll check it out, sir.
Are we more or less done now?
yes,
Yes.
I hope.
Thank you.
Anyhow, nice.
It's
Thank
wonderful.
you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Karthikeyanji. Thank you,
I
sir.
will go to the other program. People are halfway through.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful to
Thank you.
put out time for us, sir. Thank you. Thank you, all the viewers, for joining today. Let's meet again soon. And Dr. Amit Goswami's website there. You can know more about this master who has impacted the lives of so many people around the globe. I was inspired by his work. There's so many books he authored. Please visit the website and his Facebook and Twitter. He's accessible very much through emails. And it's really wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Amitji.
Really wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. We shall meet again.
We shall. Indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Exploring Spiritual Healing Modalities. And today we are very honored to have Dr. Newton with us, who is revered for one of the pioneers of PLR in the world. And he's a self-realized master, past life regression therapist, and spiritual scientist. Dr. Newton has conducted more than 1 lakh PLR sessions, both individually and group sessions. He has authored successful books like The Science of Past Life Regression, Consciousness Heals, Art and Science of Meditation, among others. He has been conferred with various titles and awards for his outstanding contribution to the field of spiritual science. He has been awarded and conferred the honor of being called as Brahmarshi Chakravarti by Patriji. And he is the founder and chairman of Life Foundation, which does a lot of training programs and workshops in various spiritual healing modalities. And today we're here with him to talk about past life regression. So welcome, Newton Garu. Okay, I think, yes, are you able to?
Yes, now that's wonderful, wonderful. Mallika Garu, Namaskaram. And it's really an honor to be with all the friends today morning and share about whatever that I learned from past life regression therapy and this healing modality, and whatever experiences that I gained, I'm going to share with all of you.
Wonderful. Great. So, Dr. Newton, please talk to us about your journey from being a doctor to Brahmarshi Chakravarti.
Okay. So, in everyone's life, there will come a day when there is a question that appears in the minds that what is that unknown? We are living in a known world and we are using all the five senses, but there is something which intrigues us when we encounter certain things like death. And we have this question. So far, this person is so alive. There is prana in him. And he was speaking to me. Suddenly, he disappeared from here. Why his body is not moving at all? And we get this question in our minds that